Baker Mayfield left Minnesota feeling amazing, and you're going to hear from the Buccaneers starting quarterback. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this Friday live episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. He is David Harrison at DHarrison82. We are your hosts of Locked On Bucs, credentialed members of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm the deputy editor of SB Nation's BucsNation.com. David is a staff writer over at BucsGameDay.com, Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation site covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we are here with you along with our everydayers every Monday through Friday. And as always, we want to share our appreciation for your continued support of the show.
Absolutely. Not only am I a staff writer at BucsGameDay.com, I'm the staff writer.
The staff
BucsGameDay.com. It's like the Ohio State. Today's episode of Locked On Bucs brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And best way to see the Tampa Bay Lightning kick some Columbus butt is with $20 off your first purchase. Or some Buccaneers kick some Bears butt. You know, whichever Tampa team, Rays, and I guess not the Orioles last night, but maybe the Orioles another night, right? On this episode, we're going to share some keys to a Buccaneers win in week 2 and a 2-0 start. The first 2-0 start in franchise history since very recently. And we're also going to talk about some bold predictions. But first, we got just a little bit of week 1 conversation that we need to clean up because Baker Mayfield recently made an appearance with hosts Jordan Palmer and Kyle Allen on the Quarterback Room podcast to discuss the Buccaneers' first win of the year and more. I was not aware of this podcast before they contacted us to see if we could help them kind of show everybody this interview. It's a great interview. We're going to show you about 2 minutes of it, but I highly recommend you go check it out once you're done listening to the best Buccaneers podcast on the earth, and that is this one.
All this talk this offseason, Tampa and all that stuff. I mean, how good does it feel to just go in there and get a win here this week 1 with these new guys as you're getting to know everybody?
I mean, it felt amazing, to be honest with you. I mean, not like the best stat line by any means, wasn't the prettiest win, but like you said, good team coming off of a great season last year and just a hostile environment. I've only played there once before that, and this was definitely a lot louder. You could feel the energy the fans still had carrying over from last year. And I think just the challenge in its own was Brian Flores coming in. His first game calling it for them and really not knowing exactly what he was going to do. It's not like they were going to show the pressures and everything in the preseason. So, it was a chess match in the first half. Every time we checked, they would, and it was more frustrating than anything because then when we try and rewind it and go back to something else, the crowd noise was just deafening to where we couldn't actually get on the same page. So, got a couple good plays in there that we capitalized on, but our defense and our kicker played unbelievable. They saved us there. 3 turnovers, kicker hit a 57-yarder. So that's a great way to start the year.
Yeah, it's always tough. That week 1 is always so interesting, especially when it's a new coach. You know, like you go and you try and watch preseason tape, but like they run 3 coverages and they run the same blitz 9 times, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, so they're going to bring the nickel, I don't know. And then they bring 4 off the left, like the first couple plays. It's like, It's always interesting to see the teams that usually have the most success week 1s are the ones that are willing to adapt and figure out what's going on in the second half and change that game plan. Seems like that's what you guys did.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like that's my thought process going into like a week 1 matchup with the new coaches. It's almost like you want to go in with like a Thursday night game plan script of like being really simple and concise, having answers for everything, and just being like everybody on your team being on the same page and then adjust from there. Because it's not like, I mean, you're after training camp, you have everything in, so it's not like you can't adjust on the fly. So I think our guys handled it well, but it definitely took a while for us to settle in.
All right, so that's your starting quarterback, Baker Mayfield, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, the quarterback room is the name of the podcast. It's a very good interview. My favorite part of the interview, honestly, James, has nothing to do with anything in real life. It was a top 4 ranking of Baker Mayfield trash talk moments during his football career. It's pretty entertaining. Warning, though, the podcast episode is not suitable for work or public and all that stuff. So if you listen to the whole thing, just be aware that you need to do it with headphones or in private. But like Baker said, not the sexiest win in the world week 1, 21 of 34 for the entire game, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns. Final quarterback rating came in under 95. Really anything over 75 is acceptable. And you want to get above 100 if you can possibly, but good ball security, no interceptions, no fumbles. He mentions Brian Flores, the new Vikings defensive coordinator, doing some interesting things. What's funny is he mentions that there. And then if you listen to Thursday Night Football's broadcast with the Minnesota Vikings, where they went 0-2, they mentioned that Brian Flores said, every time the Eagles check, we're going to check. So basically, if you're going to play the Vikings, just understand every time you check, the Vikings are going to check. But the thing is, after a couple weeks, that's no longer a surprise, right? I think the biggest thing to take away from this, James, is the adjustments that Baker talks about. In the first half, Baker Mayfield threw 9 incompletions on his 15 pass attempts. That is not good. But in the second half, he threw 79%. That doesn't just happen because, let's take a break, get some Gatorade, and go out there and do better. No, that's adjustments. And not only is that adjustments, but it's adjustments between a brand new offensive coordinator for this team, a brand new quarterback, a first-time play caller, and they're doing it together for the first time, all in the very first week of the regular season. To me, that alone has great potential in this duo.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it was something that we've talked about a lot. I talked about it on the live reaction. The fact that they didn't just continue to do the same stupid stuff over and over and over, that Canales actually worked on making those adjustments. And that was a big complaint that we had about Byron Leftwich, right? That he was still doing the same things out of the same formations week in, week out. You know, when my 13-year-old at the time is sitting there watching a game on television and he sees the way they line up and he calls what the play is, it's bad news, because that means that Byron Leftwich's offense was predictable by a 13-year-old who's never played football before. So I love what Canales did. I love what Baker did, and the two of them working together to, adjust on the fly, like Baker talked about on the QB room, that they were able to do that and come out with the win and get things on the right track after such a slow start. It's really great to see. All right, they did that already in week 1 when they're still getting acclimated to each other, to this system. Canales is getting acclimated to play calling. Imagine what they're going to be able to do 6 weeks in, 8 weeks in, 10 weeks in, when they're comfortable with one another and they can do those sorts of things without even really thinking about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So look, we all have a lot of fun talking about week 1, and I wish we could talk about it even more, but of course there is another game coming up here this weekend. And fortunately in this one, the Buccaneers are actually favorites. So 2-0 start right around the corner. We'll tell you how it's going to happen, and we'll predict who the key players are going to be to make it happen coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. When you want to take your kid to a Columbus Blue Jackets game to watch the Tampa Bay Lightning absolutely smack them up and down the ice, it shouldn't be a chore, right? You're trying to get tickets to that NSYNC reunion concert that is bound to happen. You should be excited, not stressed out. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you're about to have. Easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. The Game Time guarantee means that you're always going to get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference. It's the fastest growing ticket app in the country for a reason. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Thanks again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen and view of the day and possibly your last of the week as we enter the weekend with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back at home to host the Chicago Bears and Ohio State Buckeye legend quarterback Justin Fields. Everydayers, greatly appreciate you for coming through on a consistent basis like you do. We're going to dive into some keys of the game, and we already kind of touch on the passing stats. Everydayers, every monthers, every livers, every yearers. You're going to know I'm a numbers guy, right? So we're going to talk about some numbers here real quick, and then I promise I'll give James an opportunity to talk. So speaking of Baker Mayfield, let's stick with Baker Mayfield here. What's interesting is in both the first and third quarters against Minnesota Vikings, the Buccaneers ran the ball on 1st and 10 40% of the time, threw the ball 60% of the time. That's both the first and third quarters. So to open up each half of the first game of the season, literally, and I'm not talking like 41.2, 60.4, no, 40% flat, 60% flat, both quarters. And then they basically came out and said, okay, how's it going? Let's make our adjustments to win this game. And I like that approach from a first-time tandem, right? I think that's a really smart way to kind of go about it. Let's come into each half with a plan. Let's execute that plan, see where we are, and tinker with it as we need to. Now, of course, if the Vikings were able to take advantage of a few more things, maybe that tinkering has to start sooner. But because of the flow of the game and the turnovers by Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings that the Buccaneers were forcing, they were able to kind of maintain. But let's get into some specifics here, right? Mike Evans got most of his targets to the short left side of the field, 0 to 10 yards off the line of scrimmage, while aligned outside, right? On Sunday, the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, was 3 for 3 when he went there to Mike Evans getting 21 yards. Chicago's corner on that side of the field for most of their first game was rookie Tyreek Stevenson, who James and I liked a lot coming out of Miami, but not to cover Mike Evans on a consistent basis, right? He had trouble in the Chicago Bears first week game against Dontavion Wicks and Malik Heath. And listen, they're both NFL receivers.
Players.
They're a lot better than James and I will ever be at being receivers, but they also both are not very good wide receivers for NFL caliber wide receivers. Tyreek Stevenson got sub 60 grades against each of those receivers. So for me, key number one, when he's on the field, because the Bears got a little bit healthier this week, so Tyreek's not going to be on the field necessarily as much as he was in week one, but when he is on the field, make him prove that week one sub 60 performance was not a fluke, and target him over and over and over again whenever you can, especially with Mike Evans.
Yeah, well, and it's something that I talked to Lauren Cox about on the crossover episode on Thursday. Yeah, and it goes beyond just Tyreek Stevenson, right? The Bears starting slot corner is dealing with a hand injury. He's not playing. I think they put him on IR. So if you think the Bucs cornerback depth is a little shaky, a little rough, the Bears is about 10 times worse. So not only do you have a situation now where Tyreek Stevenson is probably going to have to match up against Mike Evans more often than not, now you get to move Chris Godwin into the slot to go up against a backup to an already subpar slot corner. So the Buccaneers' opportunity to throw the ball and take advantage of a very, very weak Chicago secondary is just... It's a dream come true, honestly. When I have talked so much nonsense about the Chicago Bears over the course of the last 6 months, these are the kind of matchups that get me excited to watch this football game and come back on here Sunday live with all of our every livers that we have in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. And one little quick stat I want to throw in there before we get to the second key. Baker Mayfield led teams are have a 69% win percentage when he doesn't throw an interception, just like he didn't do against the Minnesota Vikings. But they have an 81% win rate when he doesn't throw an interception and also throws 2 touchdowns. So Baker Mayfield, no interceptions, just like Minnesota. But let's get the ball in the end zone a couple of times. Let's come away with an 81% chance to win that game. James, the second key to this game has to be replacing Carlton Davis, right? It's all over the chat. People want to know Who is going to replace Carlton Davis? I'm going to say this. I think when you just look at the depth chart, Zion McCollum is like your second outside corner.
Yeah.
Last time we saw Zion in live defensive action, not the greatest, you know what I mean? So is it a concern? It has to be a concern. How big of a concern? I think how big a concern it is really is based on the pass rush, right? How much pressure you can put on Justin Fields, which we'll get to here in just a second, because predictably that's one of our keys. But I want to let you first, how big on like a scale of 10, 1 to 10, like 10 is don't put any money on the Bucs because this might go sideways. 1 is it doesn't even matter. We don't even need Carlton, which I don't think we're going to go there. How concerned are you about Carlton Davis missing this game?
All right, so to scale this, you said 10 was don't bother putting any money on the Buccaneers, and 1 was who cares?
Yes. 1 was put your mortgage payment on the Buccaneers because it doesn't matter at all.
I'm about a 3. I'm honestly, I'm at about a 3. I'll get into it more in a little bit, when we start making our predictions. But ultimately, they have DJ Moore, right? The Chase Claypool, I was a big fan of his.
Such a disappointment.
We both wanted him to come to the Buccaneers out of Notre Dame. He's like in witness protection at this point in time. So you still have Jamel Dean. You still have Jamel Dean, who knows DJ Moore, to be able to line up across from him. So yeah, I'm a little concerned about Zion, but I've also talked about he makes some absolutely amazing plays. He also makes some amazingly bad plays. He's the Jameis Winston of corners. That's what I'm going to leave that. He will make a play that you're like, oh my God, how did he do that? Then he'll turn around and you'll go, oh my God, why did he do that? So yes, Zion McCollum, the Jameis Winston of Buccaneers corners.
That both really nice dudes too, like really personable guys. Really enjoy talking to them. But yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of feast or famine with both guys. So I can see that, right? So I think bottom line is, how are you going to replace Carlton Davis? Bracket coverage. Like, you can't leave Zion on an island. I mean, maybe every once in a while you roll the dice and hope the Bears don't catch on. But for the most part, I think you're going to see Zion getting a lot of help, and I think that's going to help him out a lot in this matchup, depending on who he's up against. So finally, there's another Bears player that struggled mightily week 1. At least he was moving around though, and that's Justin Fields. And I know putting pressure on the opposing quarterback, no duh, got it. But listen, more specifically, Justin Fields, yes, Ohio State Buckeye legend quarterback Justin Fields was absolutely terrible against the Green Bay Packers. He's also a Green Bay Packers legend, by the way. Completed less than 65% of his passes, threw an interception, was sacked 4 times, and he had a fumble. Why? Because of pressure. Even the fumble, all that stuff because of pressure. 4th most pressured quarterback in week 1 in the National Football League. Of those pressures, Pro Football Focus, who measures all of the pressures, says 13% of those were self-created pressures, meaning he's scrambling into it or he's holding on the ball too long and letting the defense get in. For perspective purposes, Kirk Cousins only accounted for 10%. And that dude was basically a statue. I mean, he's a statue, right? So you're facing a quarterback this week that's more willing to let the defense and guys like Antoine Winfield Jr. come in and lay the hammer down than you were last week. And you saw how that turned out, right? So obviously the rest of Fields' pressures were on the offensive line or tight ends. The majority of those, again, according to PFF, came from the right guard spot belonging to Bears offensive lineman Nate Davis. Not USA Today beat writer Nate Davis, Bears offensive lineman Nate Davis. So you hit young Nate Davis with Vita Vea. You hit him with a little Logan Hall. Maybe Logan Hall can have a good day. You blitz through that lane all day long. Like Devin White, Levante David, Antoine Winfield Jr., all of you just point to Nate Davis and say, that's where I'm going to go. Even without Kalijah Cansey, even without Servante Dennis coming out on the field, even with hopefully Christian Izien out there. I mean, let's get a Christian Izien if he can play. Christian Izien blitz sack. Like I would love that for the youngster. Right guard Nate Davis, learn his number early, watch him all day long, because that is the soft spot in the Bears offensive line.
Yeah, look, Justin Fields, I've had my fun making fun of him because he's a terrible quarterback. 3 of 37 pass attempts against the Packers went 10 or more air yards. He is a dink and dunk running back. Like that's who he is at this point. Last time he faced the Buccaneers, he turned the ball over 5 times, was sacked 4 times. He had actually threw 3 interceptions, fumbled 3 times. One of those fumbles was recovered by a Bears teammate. But doing exactly what you just said, bringing those blitzes over a very, very weak right guard, having Vita Vea blow up the inside of that pocket, bringing the edge rush, bringing Antoine, bringing Izzian, bringing Dean, bringing McCollum, all of these guys, just pressure. Nothing but constant, consistent pressure that comes from all angles. And the way you beat Justin Fields isn't just shutting him down in the run game, isn't just, getting after him a little bit. It's up here. He's incredibly weak mentally. If you shake him early, it's really, really hard for him to recover.
Yep. All right. So we kind of touched on it already, but for those of you who don't know, Kalijah Cansey, Servase Dennis, both Pitt rookies on the defense, both out for this game. Cansey with the calf, Dennis with the hamstring. Carlton Davis obviously out with toe turf. Christian Izzian, concussion, was a full participant Friday, so he's questionable. But again, concussions are always weird, so don't bank on that until we see him on the field. For the Chicago Bears, like James said, they put a guy on IR, but they also have defensive back Josh Blackwell, doubtful with a hamstring injury. How is all that going to impact the guys on the field? We're going to make our predictions coming up next here on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Do you ever find that just as you're trying to fall asleep, your brain suddenly won't stop talking? I have that problem. I have to have noise or my brain goes to places I don't want it to go to. Do your thoughts start racing right before bed or at other inopportune moments? It turns out one great way to make those racing thoughts go away is to talk them through. Therapy gives you a place to do that so you can get out of your negative thought cycles and find some mental and emotional peace. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Get a break from your thoughts with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Prize Picks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. What I can't do is put together 6 players that all do what I think they're going to do. So I'm easing off a little bit this week, going with 2 players. I'm taking Saquon Barkley for more than 60 yards and Patrick Mahomes for more than 2 passing touchdowns. Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. And Prize Picks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonnfl and use code LOCKEDONNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/lockedonnfl and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Wrapping things up here on a live Friday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. Shout out to all of you, every livers in the chat. Appreciate each and every one of you. We got predictions coming up right now. We're talking predicted player of the game, bold predictions, score predictions. David, I'm going to kick it over to you first. Who is your predictive player of the game?
Yeah, I mean, this folds right into one of the keys of the game, right? My player of the game for this one is going to be Vita Vea. Listen, Kenny Clark, Green Bay Packers defensive tackle, got a game ball from the Packers last week. Why? Because he had 2 hurries, a hit, a sack. He also had a stop, which for those who aren't familiar, A stop is when you stop a play, but it's got to be on like a third down or a fourth down. So you stop a drive because of your play, right? So you got to stop. And you also had a forced fumble. So if Kenny Clark can do that, Vita Vea is better than Kenny Clark. Sorry, Kenny. So I expect Vita Vea to be just as disruptive, if not more, than Kenny Clark was for the Green Bay Packers a week ago.
Yeah, he's certainly a guy that I talked about him on the crossover again with Lauren Cox of Locked On Chicago or Locked On Bears. And I had talked about how he was one of the, biggest players in this game because of his ability to not only stop the run, but to collapse that interior of the pocket, force Justin Fields. If he's going to try to escape a collapsing pocket, force him to run right into the arms of Shaq Barrett or Joe Tryon-Shoyinka or Antoine Winfield Jr. coming off the edge. It starts with Vita Vea being able to take advantage of a very weak interior of the Chicago Bears offensive line. Love that pick from you. My predicted player of the game is Jamel Dean, and it's going to be because Jamel Dean is going to be lined up across from DJ Moore more often than not because Carlton Davis is out, and this is why I'm not super concerned. If there was a game, we all kind of knew, like Evan has joked about it, you and I brought it up a couple of times. We knew Carlton Davis was going to miss time this year. It's kind of what happens every year. He's going to miss at least a game, sometimes more. If he's going to miss one, this is the one to miss because you're going up against a below average quarterback who has below average pass catchers. He has one true guy who barely got any attention against the Green Bay Packers, that now you have a very highly paid corner who is every bit as good as Carlton Davis that gets to line up across from him. You don't have to be too super concerned with Zion McCollum or D. Delaney or things like that, because there's going to be so much dink and dunk that those shots that they take are going to go up against Jamel Dean, and he will get the better of DJ Moore. So I expect Jamel Dean to have a couple of pass breakups, maybe even an interception against Justin Fields.
Yeah, I'd really like to see Jamel Dean follow DJ Moore in this game, actually. But the problem is with losing Carlton, having Jamel follow, is that when Jamel goes to the other side with DJ, someone's got to take his spot, and that guy's got to know what Jamel's job is on the other spot. Like Jamel has been in the scheme long enough; he should be able to play defensive tackle if he needs to. But the guy that's filling in for Jamel as he moves from his normal spot, that's the guy I would be concerned with. So we'll see how the Bucs decide to go about it. Some players of the game from the live chat. Shakia's got Baker, Mike Evans, Devin White, and Antoine Winfield Jr. I love the Antoine Winfield Jr. shout outs for players of the game. Daytona Dad, James Yarcho, fan club president. Chris Godwin is his offensive player of the game. Defensive player of the game, Levante. He threw in a bold prediction with his 200 total team rushing yards and a 30-14 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let me go trade for Rachaad White and Sean Tucker and start both of them in my fantasy league because that's spicy. Bold prediction. My bold prediction is going to fold into my player of the game, Vita Vea. Remember all those numbers Kenny Clark had? 2 hurries, hit, sack, stop, and a forced fumble in a game ball. Vita Vea is going to get more than that. I don't know how much more, but he's going to get more than all that because he's better than Kenny Clark. So that's my bold prediction.
You know what? It's hard to argue because you just spit straight facts there, good sir. My bold prediction is not nearly as bold as Daytona Dad, so it's kind of a letdown here, but I'm going with the Bucs to go over 120 rushing yards. The rushing opportunity was there against the Vikings. The production was not. I've said it numerous times this week. You take a page out of the John Cooper Tampa Bay Lightning head coach playbook. Process over outcome. Follow the process. The results will come. Dave Canales has said that these running backs are going to continue to get that level of opportunity. It's on the offensive line. It's on Rachaad White. It's on Sean Tucker. It's on Chase Edmonds to be able to figure out a way to get those rushing numbers up. And as fun as it was for Baker Mayfield to win the angry run, can we maybe not have him get hurt? He's on the injury report with the right shoulder. Don't like that. That's what derailed things in Cleveland. So let the running backs do the running, and let's let Baker Mayfield just sit in a nice clean pocket and throw the football. But I do expect a big bounce back from the Bucs rushing game. David, talking about score predictions. I already gave mine on the Crossover Thursday episode where I said 20-10 Buccaneers. I will say this though. The Buccaneers as home favorites have failed to cover the spread in 6 of their last 9 games.
Yeah.
It's not great. But you know what else isn't great? The Chicago Bears. The what?
Bad Brady.
Yeah, Bad Brady is not great. But yeah, neither are the Chicago Bears. So I think we're going to see a Bucs win and a cover. But how do you see this one shaking out?
Well, I'm incredibly disappointed in you. 20-10 Buccaneers. I cannot believe how much you are underestimating this Tampa Bay squad after what they did to Minnesota. I've got the Bucs winning 23-10, sir, because they're definitely getting at least another field goal. Jeremy's got 24-9 in favor of the Buccaneers. I know we had some other scores in here. Richard's got 27-9. So we're all, I mean, we're all kind of in the same ballpark. Shakia had, here we go. Shakia had 31-3. That's that. I mean, if you're a Chicago fan, that's not entertaining. But if you're a Bucs fan, that's probably pretty entertaining. So
that's only one touchdown less than the last time they played. I mean, when they played Fields 2 years ago, it was 38-3.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe Baker, could go to the cameras and tell the people in Chicago that he owns them as well after this game. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't know, but I do expect to be joining all of you that are in the live chat now, plus all of you listening later. I expect to join all of you on Sunday when we react to this game live on YouTube. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel, turn on the notifications so you know when we go live. Full disclosure, looking at about a 7 o'clock start. I know after the Vikings game, I started around 6. My son has 4 hockey games on Sunday. So looking at about a 7 o'clock tentative start, but turn on those notifications on YouTube so you're going to know when I go live. Until then, we want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every single day. Make sure that you're leaving us your reactions, your thoughts, everything in the YouTube comments, or you can DM us on Twitter at Locked On Bucs. I'm at Yarcho_Bucs. David is at D Harrison 82. Check out all of my work over at BucsNation.com. Check out David's over at BucsGameDay.com. And and make sure that you watch the Blitz on 10 Tampa Bay. I'll be on there again with the Bucs burning question, Locked On Bucs burning question of the week every Sunday, joining my guy Evan Klosky on 10 Tampa Bay. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.